tonight. McKnight tonight.
Wrong again.
McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight.
I've seen that since university.
Fun, insightful interviews from a watchdog to some McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight. Here comes McKnight tonight.
Hello there and welcome to McKnight Tonight. I'm Rob McKnight. It is great to have your company on this Saturday, the 31st of May. It's No Tobacco Day. Why? I don't know why. When they say it's No Something Day, do I want to go and say, you're not telling me to do? Give me a tobacco. Well, give me a sticky tobacco. Yes, just give me the tobacco. I'll put it in my mouth and spit it out like the old cowboys. Now, look, I actually need your help tonight. I am trying to get the view counts up on my YouTube page. A lot of you watch it through Facebook. So what I'd like you to do is at some point during the show, can you go and subscribe to my YouTube page? It would also be great if you watch the show from there. As I said, I'm trying to get my video view count up and my hours viewed because that will allow me to do more with that page and help McKnight Tonight reach a bigger audience. YouTube comments can be shown on McKnight Tonight, just like the Facebook one, so you won't miss getting your comments on the show. But to make it worth your while, I'm going to do an extra 10 minutes on YouTube tonight where I think maybe I'll tell you an old tale from my younger days in TV. I'll answer your questions. You can ask me anything. And so the Facebook feed will stop, but YouTube will keep going. Have I made it intriguing for you? Maybe we'll get a bit loose. You never know what will happen with me. I'll make sure someone gets me a wine. I'll have a wine and tell some stories. So if you'd like to be part of that, just go to youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. That's youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. And as always, leave your thoughts in the comments section of the video, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll read them out during the stream. For now, though, let's get into our hot topics. All right, we all like to think of our home as our castle. It's a place where we feel safe and secure from the outside world. But if someone enters our home without permission, did you know there's very little we can do without breaking the law? Now, this issue came up recently here in Queensland when a home was broken into. Have a look at this story from 7 News for a bit of background.
When armed intruders smashed their way into Christie's home and put a knife to her throat.
I just was thinking, like, okay, you have to do whatever you have to do to stop them from getting to your kids.
Forced to hand over the keys to her brand new car and with it a sense of safety.
I'm just quite jumpy at a lot of sounds and I haven't been able to sleep. I just do not feel safe at all.
That person might not have had a knife in their hands once she had one in their hands.
Katter's Australia Party is using the crime to reiterate its call for castle law, allowing residents to defend their homes, even with lethal force, without facing charges.
If you're forced to defend yourself and you use a weapon to do that, you would be protected by this law.
Despite calls for the government to include castle law in the next Making Queensland Safer laws, the LNP says it's not on the table.
Castle law is not our focus right now.
Our focus is on stopping people getting into homes in the first place.
You know, I've never understood this idea that someone can break into your house and you don't have the right to stop them, essentially. Because the moment you cause them harm, you'll be arrested. You'll face the courts and possibly jail, especially if you hurt them a lot in self-defense. Now, you can argue it and a judge and a jury might find in your favour, but it's a very real risk that if someone broke into your home and you did a lot of damage and possibly killed them, you're facing a murder charge. And I just can't understand that. Your home is meant to be a safe place for you, your family, your kids, and the people inside it. And when someone breaks that trust of coming into your home, as far as I'm concerned, all bets are off. And people say, well, people could just go around murdering people in their homes. Yep. So, the fact is, if you put my kids at risk, then you should be at risk. If someone comes into my home and terrorizes my family, I don't know how together I could keep it. And it may end up with me on the receiving end. I understand that by not complying. Maybe I would in the moment. Maybe I'd make a judgment call. But I will stand up and defend anyone who takes the law into their own hands, defending their house and their family. I'm all in favour of this castle law, and I don't know why the LNP up here in Queensland are not looking into it. They keep saying, we're focused on stopping crime. Well, last year in Queensland, there were almost 48,000 instances of unlawful entry. Now, I know the LNP has got a big focus on youth crime and adult time for adult crime, and I'm very big on that as well. But if you know that you enter someone's house and that person has the right to do whatever it takes to protect themselves, you might think twice before going into that home. You might think twice about putting your life at risk. Thankfully, in Australia, we're not a gun country. This isn't the States where everyone's got a gun and it's going to become a shootout. But I do feel like these people that invade, home invasion they call it, and when someone invades, aren't you allowed to defend yourself? That's what I reckon we should be able to do. Okay, let me know your thoughts on that. Do you think you should be able to protect your home and the law should be changed? Leave your thoughts in the comments section of this video and we will get to your feedback shortly. All right, let's talk about the way the woke turn on their own. Because, and I've got to say, you've got to feel sorry for those on the progressive left who fall victim to the vitriol of those they have supported. And I'm seeing it time and time again. In fact, I talked about it this week on my Inside Media column for 7 News, but I thought it was worth covering here on McKnight Tonight. Let's take a look at the case of ABC Melbourne radio presenter Bob Murphy. The former AFL Western Bulldog star is often described as woke. When he referred to the men's competition as AFL-M for men in a recent newspaper column, he was making a bid to separate it from the women's AFLW. He was cheered on by some, but mostly ridiculed for his use of the term. So here's a guy who fights for equality and what he believes is equality and inclusivity, despite whatever backlash he might receive. So he's a lefty. He's woke. Okay, now this isn't judgment at the moment. I'm just making that point. Did any of the causes he supports and his political leanings matter when Murphy made a silly joke while on air with Chanel Vella when he insinuated during their breakfast show on ABC radio that she worked at the Melbourne strip club Spearmint Rhino? Here's what happened in case you missed it.
Eleanor, I remember when I worked in retail many moons ago, when I was still in high school.
Not at Spearmint Rhino.
No,
the other one.
No, I couldn't afford to go to a financial advisor.
I think I'm in the minority that I don't think that was a big deal. It was a silly joke between two people who were supposedly friends, but that doesn't matter my thoughts on that joke at the moment, because the day after he was forced to issue a grovelling apology.
Got a lot of news to get through this morning that sits outside of this studio, but I think it'll be pertinent, certainly from my point of view. Just to start with some news that came out of this studio. So if I can just have people's attention just for a brief moment. For those of you who listened to the show yesterday or have woken up to a story in the newspaper that refers to an inappropriate comment I made yesterday, I think I need to address that publicly to apologise. I did make a comment that insinuated my colleague and co-host Chanel here worked at Spearmint Rhino, a well-known Melbourne strip club. Cutting straight to the point, it was not just a mistake, it was a gross and inaccurate offhand quip. I promised Chanel that I'd never disrespect her, and I did break that promise. Put simply, I'm really sorry.
Look, I won't let you off the hook on it. It wasn't okay. I appreciate your words, but we do move on.
You know, the way they've handled that has completely destroyed that show. There's no future for that show. They can't have banter because everything is taken so seriously. A stupid joke where he's just trying to be funny. But I've done a whole piece on that for Inside Media on my 7 News column. You can just Google that. I might try and leave some links around so you can find that. So not only was he forced to issue that grovelling and horrible apology, but those who he had stood up for were quick to turn on him, labelling him misogynistic. And in fact, when I made the point and put it on my socials that the way she reacted to that had destroyed any goodwill towards the show and any chemistry that they might have had. I was attacked for blaming the victim. I wasn't doing that. I was talking about how teams work together, cover each other's asses, and try to do the best for the team. None of that happened here. But seriously, go and read my column or watch the YouTube video. Now, it turns out you can't, talking of banking any goodwill, you can't do that with the woke brigade, because if you make one mistake, you become the enemy. And this is a take no prisoners situation. Now, I remember when Jessica Rose suffered a similar fate back in 2021 because, and get this, she dared to interview Pauline Hanson for her podcast, the Jess Rowe Big Talk Show. Now, the left turned on Rowe and she pulled the episode after a massive backlash despite doing nothing wrong. She was simply talking to an elected official. Why? You can't even talk to an elected official? No, we're platforming Pauline Hanson. I mean, Jessica even made the point that she didn't agree with Hanson's politics, but she was accused of platforming the One Nation leader who is a federal politician who is platformed. The thing I don't understand to this very day, though, is that if you ever watch just one episode of Studio 10, and I know a lot of people watching this did, you would know Jessica is a kind-hearted big lefty. So even if she had made the wrong call by interviewing Hanson, and I don't believe she made the wrong call, but even if she did, didn't she deserve a pass? Didn't she deserve some kindness for all the people she had stood up for, all the issues on the left that she had supported? Well, apparently not. It turns out you're only embraced by those on the extreme left until you dare step out of line. Whether you actually have stepped out of line is questionable, but it's whether they believe that you have stepped out of line. Bob Murphy is a progressive lefty. Some call him woke. Whatever. It's fair enough to be whatever he wants to be. He can wear his politics on his sleeve. He's giving his opinions on stuff. That's fine. It's just a shame that the people and issues he supports didn't support him after he made a silly joke. And that's why the woke, those on the hard left and those a lot of people call woke, they eat themselves. Because there is no tolerance for mistakes. And there's no tolerance if you step out of line. You got to be careful being a lefty. So for those who missed the start of the show, I'm doing an extra 10 minutes on YouTube tonight. And I'll be honest, I'm doing it so that you go to YouTube, subscribe, and get my video view counts up, the amount of time spent watching. It will allow me to get McKnight Tonight out to a bigger audience. So I need your help. Okay, so go to YouTube by going to youtube.com/@McKnight Tonight. All right, do me a favor, do that. And we'll have a bit of extra 10 minutes fun after the back end quickie. Yeah. Okay, now it's time for Rob's Rant. Oh, I thought we were going to have a Rob's Rant graphic. What? Oh, no, I didn't make one up. Okay, next time. This week, I want to talk about pranks on strangers. Have a look at this video taken in a Kmart in Adelaide. The prankster pretends to steal money from a shopper by playing a ding sound effect. You know, the one you usually hear when you make a purchase.
Excuse me. Do you have the time on you by any chance?
1:35, mate.
Thank you.
What are you doing there?
I just needed...
What are you fucking doing there?
I'm sorry.
It was at this moment that he knew. He up.
No, bro, I'm sorry.
No, give me your phone. Give me that phone
no,
right now.
Can we just talk?
No, give me that phone right now.
Chill. Oi, you're going to break it.
What the did you do then?
I'm trying to explain.
You better... give me the phone, right?
Bro.
Now you tell me what you did.
Obviously, this guy's got no remorse because he still posted the video, but that is where it cuts out. Here, there is no more there. In other videos, the guy sneezes on people. He moans in their ears. There is this whole trend online of doing these internet pranks, and it can go wrong. Now, what if that guy had jobbed him? What if he'd hit him? What if there was more violence? You know, I'm open to pranks on friends, family, close work colleagues where you can have a bit of fun because you know it's in jest. What if this guy had broken the phone? Who's in the wrong here? The man, the victim, thought that his phone had been tapped. We hear about these scams all the time. We don't know what is and isn't possible, but if you hear if someone takes their phone up to yours and goes ding, You think they've taken money from my credit card, my bank account. It's scary stuff. How would you react? But this prankster, he's like, no, let me explain. You know what? I don't care what your explanation is. And I fear tonight that I'm sounding violent. I think the problem is I'm just so sick of entitled people thinking they can do whatever they like to normal people, whether it's breaking into your home, as we discussed earlier, or pulling these kind of pranks where you're getting sneezed on. We went through COVID, and you think it's okay to pretend to sneeze on someone or actually sneeze on someone or moan in their ears? It's not. You know, there's a difference when TV shows pull pranks, because they will pull the prank, then they'll explain the concept and they'll get release forms signed and all that kind of stuff. So they're not put on the internet whether they like it or not. They actually sign a release. Everyone you see in TV prank shows has agreed for that video to go to air. Do you think that man agreed for that video to go to air? No. He's out there. He became a feature on news.com.au because of the way he reacted. He didn't want that. He wasn't in a public place, because when you're in a shopping centre or in a Kmart, you don't have the right to record people. It's not like when you're in a public place and you have the open right. So legally, there are issues with these pranks in a Kmart. But also just the dignity of these people just trying to get on with their lives. Why do they have to become part of your narrative to try and get clicks and likes and go viral? It's horrific. And I'm not a wowser when it comes to the internet and the things people do online. I'm really not. You know, if people want to try and go viral, do it. But do it with your own talent. Do it with your own ideas. Don't do it by belittling other people who are just trying to live their lives.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You'll never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
Okay, we're back. We had a slight audio problem there, but yes, it's time for our random live shot of the day. And today we're taking you to the Colosseum in Rome. The Colosseum was built between 72 AD and 80 AD under the Emperor Vespasian. It was in the heart of ancient Rome, of course. Did you know that to protect the spectators from the blistering sun and heat of ancient Rome, there was a velarium, an awning that could be pulled over the top of the seating area to provide shade? Weather-wise, it's a sunny day today and hot, with a top of 32 degrees after an overnight low of just 16. Geez, it would be good if I could hit the right buttons, wouldn't it? Sorry about that, everyone. I had a whole thing going on here, so apologies. But hey, how cool is this? If I move here... It's all going wrong. One of my little remotes has fallen down and was getting caught in the chair. But if I go here, I look like I'm at the Colosseum. Hello, everybody. Hello. I see you. Okay, let's get some of your feedback that's coming through to McKnight tonight. Justine says, hello, everyone. Hope all is well with you all. Looking forward to a great show. Well, Justine, hopefully you have thought it's a great show, so hopefully we're living up to that. Let's go over the page. Hello, everyone. Love the new bigger screen, Rob. Thank you, Dylan. Oh, can I just say, Dylan, so the reason we have a big new screen is because I was playing with some ideas with the set and I moved the old screen, which was smaller, to around the front, and it fell over and it broke and we had no set monitor, and basically it was a nice way to convince Amanda to get a new TV. So we got a bigger one for the lounge room and we got this one here. I think it looks really good, but if I knew I just had to break it to get a new one. Oh, I'm in trouble. Let's go over the page. JM544 says, I am a little lonely here. Come join me. He's on YouTube. That's what JM Fire is referring to. And don't forget, we're going to have that 10-minute extra bit of content on YouTube, and I might reveal some stories. Jasmine, who else have we got? Glenn says Bob Murphy needs to read the room, and his audience, most of whom would have been exhausted by his lowbrow, stupid remark aimed at his co-host. Idiotic. Glenn, I'd like to take issue with that. When you're in a team, you're both working off each other and trying to be funny. So the only way I can sort of equate it is when I used to appear with Sophie Formica on afternoons on 4BC, and I was doing entertainment. Her and I had great banter with each other because we're very friendly off the radio. And I know that I could have made that joke with her, and if she didn't like it, she would have just said, "Are you calling me a stripper, Rob? Are you right?" Like she would have had a fun go at me, and then we could have had a call in what kind of humour is appropriate. But the way this was handled, and I don't believe it was that bad a joke. He was making a joke that she worked at a strip club. People can make that joke about me, and I know it's sexualisation of women and all that kind of stuff, and maybe we should be beyond it, but it was a 2-second joke. And this is a man who has stuck up for the AFLW, and he's really pushed the narrative of not having it separated from the men's and forcing the men not to be the default by just calling it AFL, but AFLM. So I think the way it played out damaged both of them. And I'm not victim blaming when I say this. I'm just saying that as a partnership, you've got to protect each other. Let's go over the page. Who else have we got there? Jason says, I hate this woke business. Everyone insisting on being offended by everything. Since when has everyone been so sensitive? Yes, Jason. I think it is a case of people wanting an excuse to attack one another. Give me a break. Well said, Jason. Over the page we go. We've got a lot of great feedback coming through. JM544, I don't have my credit card on my phone, watch or anything. Too easy to be hacked. Geez, Jason, I've got everything on my phone. So if I get hacked, I'm in a lot of trouble, let me tell you. So, yes. Dylan says, love the random shot of the day. Yeah, the Coliseum is looking very good, isn't it? Thank you for all your feedback. Don't forget to go over to YouTube and subscribe to us there. It is youtube.com/@McKnight tonight, and you'll get an extra 10 minutes. But I reckon it's time to bring in our special guest.
Here comes McKnight tonight.
Well, the media sector is going through a major transition at the moment. As revenues decline across all sectors, it's getting harder and harder to connect with audiences and drive growth. Tonight, I thought I'd get some insight into how the Australian radio market is doing. Spencer Howson is a Brisbane-based broadcaster, is a former host of ABC Breakfast, where he was number one for many, many years. And he's been studying the value of local radio for his PhD with Griffith University. Spencer, welcome to McKnight Tonight.
Good evening. What an honour this is. Many times viewer, first-time participant. Hello.
Well, I should let people know I've appeared on many of your radio programs. When you first started at 4BC, I was your first guest. Recently, you've been doing ABC weekends on Saturday, and I've appeared on that, talking hot topics. You have had a long career with local radio, so you do know what you're talking about here.
Well, I've 30 odd years, with the ABC mostly, and 3 years at 4BC, as you say. And I really am interested in this question of how important is local radio to audiences going forward. And so I throw myself into this PhD. It's potentially an 8-year project. They give you maximum of 8 years. So my deadline is July 2032, 2 weeks before the opening ceremony of the games in Brisbane, by the way. So when we get to the opening ceremony, I should have finished the PhD. But what really got me thinking is that there are some places. I'll give you an example just to start us off. Mad Isa is a fascinating place where the number one rating breakfast show with a little over 50% of the audience is the hit breakfast show from the Gold Coast. So more than half of breakfast radio listeners in Mount Isa in northwest Queensland are listening to a breakfast show. It's the same breakfast show that's going to air on Hit on the Gold Coast and it's the number one show. And number two, with about 14%, is the local ABC breakfast show, broadcasting from Mount Isa. And you might think, well, Mount Isa, mining town, transient population, young population. Yeah, maybe. So let's look at Toowoomba, just outside Brisbane, just to the west of Brisbane, conservative, large, certainly not young and not transient. The number one rating breakfast show in Toowoomba, the exact same hit breakfast show which comes from the Gold Coast. So this has got
does
me
localism not
wondering.
matter?
This is the question. And as someone who has for decades banged on and on about live and local, it's got to be live and local, and I'm absolutely surrounded with my friends and my colleagues who say exactly the same thing, I want to test this. And I suppose I'm wondering whether, and so, you know, in the first 10 months of my PhD, I've been doing a lot of reading of research from around the world. And there is a big gap in the literature, which I'm wanting to fill, which is around Australian radio, local radio, and particularly regional areas. But already I'm seeing there's research showing that people are just not as connected to their local town or their local region as they once were. And the internet has a lot to do with that. You can listen to radio from anywhere in the world. If you've moved from Sydney to the coast, you might keep listening to the Sydney radio station you've always listened to. If you move to Mount Isa and you were listening to Hit on the Gold Coast or listening to B105, you can keep listening to that radio station in Mount Isa. And what does this mean for the radio industry going forward?
Well, it's a very good question. But to challenge that, we have an example in Melbourne where Carl and Jackie O, very big Sydney local breakfast show, moved into Melbourne and it hasn't gone so well. They've seen some slight growth in the last survey, but on the whole, they haven't penetrated that market. But that could be a content issue because there's been plenty of headlines about the content.
And also, I would say it's still early days. Now, I was number one in Brisbane for as you say, for quite a while. It took me, it was the end of my 5th year doing breakfast. So 40 surveys it took me to get to number one. And Kyle and Jack have only just been doing it for a year into Melbourne, and they're starting to see an increase. I actually think that if they had attempted Brisbane first, that might have been more successful and given them momentum.
I agree with this.
Because see, they're both from Queensland, right? And also, I mean, I'm not the first to say this, but Brisbane and Sydney are far more aligned, and not just on sport. You know, a big one for those who are not in Brisbane or Sydney to understand is that when you're in Brisbane, you look up to Sydney. You go to Sydney for the weekend. You might aspire to one day work in Sydney. I don't think that people in Melbourne feel that way about Sydney. So it's a totally different dynamic.
Absolutely not. Interestingly, in Sydney, I didn't understand the thinking from Today FM when they had Hughesy and Ed, 2 Melbourne presenters, in Sydney doing the local breakfast show, and that show never took off. And I did put it down to localism because I didn't feel it was a local show. I didn't feel they knew the suburbs and everything. So it's not a clear-cut answer, is it, when it comes to localism?
No, it's not. And you look at the UK as an example, as a comparison, and the UK is very different for a couple of reasons. One is that the UK got local radio much later than it got network radio, whereas Australia has had local radio from the very beginning of radio, but also the geography in the UK. So in the UK, the national networks are the number one stations, but you can drive. You potentially will drive half of the country for a business meeting. You might drive from Manchester to London, and so your that national breakfast program that gives you traffic on the M1 is relevant to you. Here, that's just not the case. So the geography is just not. Someone in Sydney and Melbourne, there's nothing in common, say, with weather or traffic or interest about what's going on locally, but I think that these programs can still absolutely work. And we're seeing this in regional Australia. And I gave those examples in Queensland. And it's not just in Queensland that this is happening. Kalgoorlie in WA, from memory, the number one rating breakfast show there is the hit breakfast show out of Perth. Not as far away as Mount Isa to the Gold Coast. But I think what this is showing again is that people are, they're getting their local information now from the WhatsApp chat of their street, the Facebook community group of their suburb. There's some data out of the UK which says that third and fourth, then, for people wanting local information is actually their local television news bulletins still, and then news websites. And radio comes fifth for people in terms of where do I go to find local information. And so if people are not expecting or coming to radio for local information, then what is radio's unique proposition? And company is definitely one. And this is what I'm going to be researching. Company, the music.
How important is the music? Because I have a theory at the moment that I think music is going to play less and less a role on radio because we can get music anywhere. We've got Spotify and we can curate our own playlist. What radio does offer us is access to new music that we might not be aware of. And I do feel like talk could become the superstar of radio. If you look at Melbourne and Sydney, the talk stations, 3AW and 2GB are number one. 4BC has had issues because of format changes. I do think it will get there, but it needs to get its format right. It went to a lighter music format. That didn't connect with a traditional talkback audience. So that live and local could still work because of the talk factor, no?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the thing about, there's a whole list of things that we used to get from radio, and most of them, almost all, there's about one exception, but all of them you can get from somewhere else. So music you can get from somewhere else. Weather, news, traffic, everything that you used to get from the radio when you woke up in the morning, you've already got by the time you turn the radio on. The one thing you can't get is the personality, the presenter, the radio presenter. And that's why I say companionship or company is I think going to turn out to be a really important thing from my research. But on talk, I had Dan Barrett on my ABC Saturday Breakfast show this morning, and he's just become the editor of Media Week. And I asked him about the future of radio, and he said that he actually thinks the future for radio is bright, and it is in talk. And one of the things that he cited is a lot of podcasts are going to video now because that's where the money is. And so it's going to leave radio, again, with this unique proposition. If podcasting becomes more vodcasting, then radio is going to be able to reclaim its position as that multitasking source of audio. And so, yes, the talk is the personalities. It's what you can't get, that conversation. You can't get that, and the conversation with the audience, absolutely. I'm a fan of music on radio, though. I always have been, and maybe... I struggle sometimes because I've been doing this so long and I need to let go, I know, of some of my old thinking. But when I'm listening to talk radio, I want sometimes to just be able to stop and think. Or if I'm driving in the car with someone else, you just need those opportunities to maybe debrief or discuss with the other person. And that's not to say the music is filler. Absolutely not. It completely adds to the mood. And I love up music, especially at breakfast time. And I love a breakfast show that has music. But it can't just be music because, as you say, you can get music and your own music anywhere else. The curation, the curated music, the new music, that is a good thing. Because otherwise, Spotify or whatever streaming service is going to keep you in your bubble and give you what it thinks you already know, or you know that you already know. And there's no substitute. Like I played the new Robert Forster song this morning on the ABC. He's from the Go-Between Streets of Your Town, a song very well known here in Queensland. That song's not going to pop up on too many people's Spotifys today, but it did pop up on the radio this morning. He's absolute Queensland music royalty, and it was a great pleasure to be able to play his brand new song on the radio this morning.
Well, you are a Queensland legend. We will have to regroup in 8 years, get you back on McKnight tonight.
I'd like to think I'll get it done earlier than that.
And we'll have to get you to give us your thesis and find out what the results were. Spencer Howson, you are a radio legend. You're a good friend. Thank you for coming on McKnight tonight.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Let's get a bit of feedback coming through. You've got to love that man, don't you? He's a very good bloke, I've got to say. Glenn says, the future of radio is great for incidents and the resilience of timely updates. That aside, it's all about podcasts and Spotify at a time that works for you when you want to listen. I understand what you're saying there, Glenn, I will say, but I do think there's something to be said about what we can get from the radio, from opinions and things like that. I agree with you about podcasts and Spotify. Let's go over the page. And we've got Own your crazy. Given how many podcasts exist, the last thing I need is more talk and more opinions. I just want to be entertained. Own your own crazy. You're watching McKnight Tonight. This could easily be a radio show. I think you like talk and opinions. What's Jeanette have to say? Jeanette says, I need music at work. It helps my clients to relax, dance and sing. Yes, but Jeanette, you can do that on Spotify. So I do think the future of FM radio is more talk, but we'll see what happens. Before we go tonight, I think we've got time for a back-end quickie. That's a quick item in the back end of the show, just in case you were thinking anything else. This week, we can thank Sky News for our back-end quickie. Presenter Jack Horton was caught out in an editing fail when his media show was broadcast on Friday night. Take a look.
Australia cannot keep approving big climate bombs.
A climate bomb. How very scientific. The ABC did not challenge a word of Sarah Hanson-Young's absurd statements. And by doing this, the journalist is elevating unscientific gibberish and making viewers think that every word is true. Now, climate science is extremely complex and can I redo this? It's two stumbles. Okay. Just whenever? Climate bomb. How very scientific. The ABC did not challenge a word of Sarah Hanson-Young's absurd statements.
Oh, you think there's perils in going live, but it's always dangerous pre-recording a show, especially dangerous when the editor doesn't pick up on an outtake and puts it to air. And I've got to say, we have a trick here at McKnight Tonight when I'm recording Inside Media and Monsters Who Murder. Amanda puts black to line. If there's a flub or a stuff up, she'll put black so that when I'm editing and trying to speed through, I know that something's happened. So, Jack, that's one little tip from Rob to you. Maybe you'll use that next time. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of McKnight Tonight. Don't forget, we have our YouTube version coming up next. So the Facebook feed will stop. So get on over to YouTube, subscribe and watch. And maybe I'll tell a story. I'll start, I think, with Dolly Parton. That's it for this edition of McKnight Tonight. For everyone else, I'll see you right now for McKnight Overtime on YouTube. Good night from McKnight.
McKnight Tonight. McKnight Tonight. It's good night from McKnight Tonight.